Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Joe, True in Love, with another episode or another review, of AEW Dynamite. This case, Beach Break for February 2nd, 2021. Was a good show. After weeks of build, coming to the conclusion, we got some good matches, got some good furthering of storylines. We also got some more matches confirmed for Revolution, which take place on March 7th for AEW Dynamite, or their first pay-per-view of the year. We also got some interesting ways at the end of the show, and you'll know what I mean, and what it could lead to, or what it may lead to, furthering of AEW Dynamite. But thank you for joining me. If you're new to the podcast, like and subscribe. Click on that bell for all your notifications as far as reviews and predictions are concerned, as far as pro wrestling, AEW, etc. But thank you for joining me, and let's get into the review, shall we? So, the show started off with the Tag Team Battle Royal to decide the number one contenders for the AEW Tag Team titles for the Young Bucks at Revolution. The Young Bucks are, of course, also in this match, where if they win, they would choose their opponents. That was not to be, but this was, I'll just go over the eliminations here, but this was a fun Battle Royal, I would say. So, Darius Martin of Top Flight, they were in this match. He was eliminated to start. And then Alex Reynolds and John Silvers, they replaced FTR because FTR was suspended due to their actions last week on Dynamite. And Alex Reynolds, he was eliminated by Jake Hager. Then Hager was eliminated by Evil Uno. Matt Jackson, he was dumped on the rampway, which took a little to digest because they didn't announce he was eliminated on commentary till like some good time after, like a half a minute or so. But they did announce he was eliminated. So Matt Jackson was eliminated. Then Anthony Bowens of the Acclaimed, he was eliminated by the Inner Circle's MJF and Chris Jericho. Followed by Sue Grayson was eliminated. Luchasaurus, he was eliminated. Then Evil Uno, he was eliminated by MJF. Mark Quinn, they went for the silly string with Isaiah Cassidy, but it didn't work, and Quinn was eliminated by Dante Martin. Then John Silvers was eliminated. Santana Ortiz were eliminated. Isaiah Cassidy then was eliminated. Then, Private Party are the number one contenders for the Impact Tag Team titles, which the Good Brothers came out to make an appearance, and they distracted Nick Jackson and everyone that was in the ring, and thus Isaiah Cassidy was eliminated. Then Nick Jackson, he was eliminated, which took out the Bucks. So then Jungle Boy The final 6 were Jungle Boy, Chris Jericho, Sammy Guevara, MJF, all of the Inner Circle, and then Max Caster, and Dante Martin of Top Flight were all still in it. So it was a nice little back and forth. Jungle Boy, he was eliminated. Then MJF, he was eliminated. Followed by Max Caster being eliminated. Then Sammy Guevara and Dante Martin were exchanging over the top rope. And Sammy looked like he was going to go for Skin the Cat, but Jericho tried to dump Dante over the top rope, thus eliminating Sammy. And then it was down to Jericho and Dante. They had a nice little exchange, and then Dante went for a springboard, but was hit with a juice effect, which knocked him out of the ring and thus eliminated him. Therefore, so we get Jericho and MJF winning, and it'll be Jericho and MJF face off against the Young Bucks at Revolution for the tag team titles. I'm for it, considering how they've been building up Jericho and MJF, and they've done well. And at the same time, it's furthered the storyline of the Inner Circle. We saw some of that later in the show, but it's a good match for Revolution. I'm curious how they'll exchange, how they'll fare off, but should be interesting. So then we had a Sting and Darby Allin in-ring segment. Sting described his match, or Darby's match next week, against Joey Janela, how he'll defend the title against Janela, and that will be there to make sure he doesn't have to fend off any of Taz's cronies. He'll be there to make sure it's a one-on-one match. And he said Stark said that when he sees or he looks into the Stinger's eyes, he doesn't see this icon anymore. Well, maybe he has to take another look. That was how the segment went off the air. So then we had a good match that was off of weeks of build. Britt Baker for Thunder Rosa. This was a good match, probably the best match Britt Baker has had on AEW Dynamite thus far. Thunder Rosa and Britt Baker really had good chemistry in this match. It was back and forth. Rosa getting into this match hit a senton in the corner for a near fall. Then they were fighting on the outside, and Baker was thrown to the barricade. And then later in the match was a sling blade, a good sling blade by Britt Baker. She usually tries for a sling blade, but it comes off as sloppy. This was actually a good sling blade. Then a super kick by Britt for a near fall. Was an air raid crash, and then a deadfall driver by Rosa for a 2. Then at the end of the match came when Reba, she exposed the middle turnbuckle, which distracted Rosa and forced her to release a submission hold, and then Rosa and Britt were exchanging, and Rosa was thrown, face first into the exposed steel, and then Rosa was out, and then Baker applied the lockjaw, and Rosa was out, so Baker won on a technically with the lockjaw. So a good match, good ending. Wouldn't mind seeing another match out of these two at Revolution. I assume that's where it goes. But good match for both. Baker, she's showing improvement. And that's what you like to see, improvement. And Rosa is arguably the best wrestler in the women's division they have there. So it was good. This was, besides the wedding, this was probably the downfall of the show, the lowest point of the show. I mean, it was okay. It was Hangman Adam Page and Matt Hardy versus Chaos Project. I can't really get excited for a match with Chaos Project with Luther and Pentago. I mean, they're talented. They have shown good things on AEW Dark, but something about them is just not clicking for me. But it was a fun match. Hangman and Matt won with a buckshot lariat. Matt tagged Hangman and won the match. The perpetual bidding, I would say, for Hangman Page is intriguing because you got the Dark Order and you got Matt Hardy. Where this leads, I don't know, but if it's getting him more over and it's giving him something to do, but just curious to see where it leads. So then we had Chris Jericho and MJF celebrate backstage. They had a cooler. They went to their locker room with the rest of the Inner Circle. They said, "We did it," but Sammy really wasn't having any of it. So Sammy stormed off, Jericho went to talk with him, and then MJF, he told Santana Ortiz and Hager, perhaps we need to have a talk. So Wardlow, he closed the door, forced the cameraman out, and that was that. That was the end of it. I'm intrigued to see if this leads to MJF taking the Inner Circle for himself. I'm really intrigued, but where this leads. But I'm intrigued for the match at Revolution, and the story is interesting. So then we had the Kip Sabian, Penelope Ford wedding. Da, da, da. I mean, it was okay. It wasn't over top like some weddings in WWE or pro wrestling for that matter have been. And it wasn't too over top, it wasn't too corny. So it was in the ring. Vicky Guerrero was there. James Mitchell. Yes, James Mitchell, who has managed Rosemary and Abyss in Impact TNA, was there. He was officiating the wedding. Charles was there. Miro was there. So they went through the sayings, and excuse me, Sabi and Penelope kissed, and then Miro looked in the corner, and it was a gift from Charles the Butler, aka Chuck Taylor. So it was a tall present, and he thought, well, Miro thought, okay, Orange Cassidy must be in this present. So Miro destroyed the present, threw it out of the ring, but it was empty, and he ordered Charles to clean up the mess on the outside. He said, let's have some cake. So then all of a sudden, Miro's ankles were shackled to the bottom rope, and Charles blindsided Kip, and Penelope went face first into the cake, and she got in the back of Charles, and then all of a sudden, Orange Cassidy appears out of the cake, and he hits a beach break, quote unquote, on Kip, and that was basically how the segment went off the air. So it was okay. It prolongs the storyline. I imagine whether it's a tag team match or we get Miro for Orange Cassidy at Revolution, I wouldn't mind the match. It's just the story is just not there for me. So then we have Lance Archer for Eddie Kingston Lumberjack Match. This good. I mean, wasn't like over the top lumberjacks, with jobbers and all the roster surrounding the ring. It was just mainly a couple jobbers, Jake Roberts, and a Kingston's family, aka Butcher and Blade and the Money. But fine for was Archer. He went for the blackout on the Bunny, but A. Kingston hit his back fist on Archer. Archer hit a ripcord Uranagi for 2, and then hit the blackout on Kingston for the win. Gets the win for Archer. I'm curious if, well, what we saw in the main events, I think this feud may be over. I wouldn't mind seeing another match between these two, but Very interesting to see what they do with Lance Archer and Eddie Kingston going forward. So then we get to the main event. We got Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers for Shawn Moxley, Pac, and Fenix. This was a good match to end the show. It was getting into this match. It was Moxley being picked apart, and then a hot tag to Fenix. As usual, a house on fire. Then Pac hit a beautiful drop kick. Then serial moonsaults by Pac and Fenix to the outside, which took out the Good Brothers. And cutter by Fenix for a 2. Big boot by Gallows for a near fall. A gut wrench powerbomb by Omega on Pac for a 2. There was some triple team combination on Omega, which led to a German by Pac for a near fall. Omega hit a paradigm shift on Moxley, which was broken up by a 450 by Pac, a beautiful 450. Was a good spot. Then Carl Anderson and Fenix were exchanging. It was a beautiful spine buster, catching Fenix out in midair by Anderson, and then the Magic Killer by Anderson Gallows for the win. Good match, but after the match was interesting. So, Lance Archer came out to save Ray Fenix and Pac. They were getting beaten up, which took out the Good Brothers. And then it was Jon Moxley and Kenny Omega in the ring. And then all of a sudden, some masked dude in a hoodie comes out and blindsides Jon Moxley out of the crowd. He unmasked, and it was Kenta from New Japan Pro Wrestling. Kenta, who has the briefcase, who can challenge any champion of New Japan Pro Wrestling. He has targeted Jon Moxley. He targeted Jon Moxley's IWGP United States Championship. He was attacked by Moxley on New Japan Strong the other day. And Kenta gets his revenge. And what a way to end Dynamite. Kenta appeared. And the show goes off the air with Omega standing tall over Moxley. Apparently next week, we're going to get a blockbuster tag team match between Omega and Kenta. Kenta will make his AEW debut versus Lance Archer and Jon Moxley. Now, a couple years ago, every one of these guys have ties to New Japan Pro Wrestling. If you don't think that AEW, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling are all going to do a partnership, this is another little tease. We've seen Private Party in New Japan. We've seen the Good Brothers in AEW. Now we've seen Kenta from New Japan, Moxley to New Japan. Kenta is in AEW, and wow, this is interesting. This partnership three-way is this good for wrestling, good for AEW, brings notoriety to all three wrestling organizations. And I'm enjoying it. It gives notoriety, like I said, and an audience, broader audience to all three. I'm intrigued to see what the future holds, but like I said, a good match, a good beach break, a good show besides the wedding, and the tag team match between the Chaos Project, Hangman, and Matt Hardy. But it was a good match. Was a good show, excuse me. Overall, good show, quality show. So that was the review, guys. Thank you for joining me. Like I said, if you're new, like and subscribe. Thank you all, and I'll see you next week, Tuesday, for Sports Up For You topics. Thank you. Have a good rest of your week.